There's a side of faith that most people never see. Not the sermons, not the choirs, not the quiet moments of prayer. It exists behind the lights, behind the cameras, behind the polished auditorium walls. It's a world where devotion meets organization, where influence meets infrastructure, and where faith becomes, quietly, an industry. To understand how we arrived at the modern church economy, we must start in the mid-20th century. This was a time of transformation in American religious life, subtle at first but monumental in its long-term consequences. Communities that had once gathered in modest halls or small neighborhood churches were beginning to expand. Pews grew longer. Stages became wider. Auditoriums began to hold thousands instead of hundreds. It was the dawn of the megachurch era, though few could have recognized it at the time. And then television arrived. In the 1950s and 1960s, TV sets became a fixture in American homes. With that glow in the living room came a revolutionary opportunity: the ability to broadcast a sermon to thousands, then tens of thousands, then millions. Early televangelists understood what few others did. The reach of their voice now extended beyond the city limits, beyond the state, beyond any congregation they could physically gather. A sermon that once required an audience present in the same room could now influence viewers across the nation, and with reach came money. Donations increased. Subscriptions, mailed offerings, and televised campaigns created revenue streams churches had never seen before. Attendance at physical services grew as well, fueled by media exposure. The model was simple yet powerful. Influence attracts followers. Followers provide resources. Resources fund growth. Growth amplifies influence. Consider some of the pioneers of television ministry. Their names are familiar even today. Personalities who combined oratory skill with a vision of expansion. They didn't just preach, they marketed. They branded. They presented a compelling story, not just a message. These leaders realized that people weren't just giving money, they were buying into a narrative, a story that framed their contribution as part of something larger. That sense of purpose inspired loyalty. It inspired giving. And in turn, it reinforced the reach of the ministry. Alongside this financial evolution, the organizational structures of churches were also changing. Boards became formalized. Staff positions multiplied. Leadership roles became specialized. Media directors, finance officers, event coordinators all became essential components of an expanding operation. The church was no longer simply a spiritual gathering. It was increasingly resembling a corporation, a carefully managed enterprise that required vision, logistics, and oversight. The cultural context of post-war America also played a significant role. Economic optimism, social mobility, and rapid urbanization meant that Americans were seeking community, guidance, and meaning, and large churches offered all three on a scale unmatched by previous generations. Families were drawn to programs for children, outreach initiatives, youth ministries, and educational seminars. These programs were funded by donations, but they also served to attract and retain congregants, reinforcing the financial cycle. By the 1970s, the blueprint was becoming clear. Churches that adopted this model grew faster, reached farther, and had the resources to expand their message beyond local boundaries. The megachurch, in its early form, was now more than a place of worship. It was a system of influence, revenue, and organizational sophistication. Yet with growth came new challenges. Accountability became more complex. Leadership hierarchies multiplied. Financial transparency often became opaque, not due to malice, but due to the sheer scale of operations. Managing millions of dollars, thousands of congregants, and multiple programs required a structure that many small churches had never encountered. And this is where the first layer of the modern church economy firmly took root. Influence generated donations. Donations funded expansion. Expansion amplified influence. It was a cycle that once started became self-reinforcing. The psychology behind it is worth noting. Donors weren't simply contributing because of faith alone. They were contributing to a vision, a story, a sense of belonging. Leaders understood this intuitively. Every sermon, every campaign, every outreach initiative was carefully crafted to maintain engagement, foster loyalty, and encourage giving. By the 1980s, the archetype of the modern megachurch had been established. Physical expansion, media presence, and charismatic leadership were all part of a replicable model. Churches began to operate with multiple campuses, satellite studios, and professional staff managing everything from finances to media strategy. The system was effective, but it also blurred lines. What began as spiritual leadership was now intertwined with financial management, marketing, and organizational strategy. The question of what was faith-driven and what was strategy-driven became increasingly complex. In many ways, this evolution mirrored the growth of large corporations. Vision and leadership were crucial. Logistics and management were essential. Understanding human psychology, how people connect to stories, leaders, and communities, became a core skill. And by the end of the 1980s, this foundation had set the stage for what would become a billion-dollar industry, one that operates in plain sight, often without scrutiny, and yet touches millions of lives. But this story is only beginning. The next phase, satellite media, global reach, and digital donations, would propel the church economy into entirely new dimensions. Influence, power, and wealth would become increasingly intertwined, setting the stage for the modern landscape we see today. By the 1990s, the modern church economy had already established its foundation. Charismatic leaders, growing congregations, and television evangelism had created an intricate web of influence and resources. But a new set of opportunities was emerging. The spread of satellite networks, the rise of the internet, and the expansion of global media would transform the way churches reached their followers and the way money flowed. Satellite television allowed services to broadcast far beyond national borders. A sermon in Texas could be watched in California, New York, or even overseas. Suddenly, local churches were competing on a global stage. Donations could arrive from thousands of miles away without ever setting foot in a physical auditorium. This broke the traditional connection between attendance and giving. Faith was no longer bound by geography. Influence was. The internet amplified this effect. Websites, email newsletters, and eventually online giving platforms created a seamless path for followers to contribute at any time. Online ministries were no longer experimental. They became essential. Leaders who adapted early were able to expand revenue streams dramatically. Donations that had once been collected in weekly envelopes were now flowing digitally, 24 hours a day. Automated giving, mobile apps, subscription services, and crowdfunding campaigns created recurring income that could be projected, tracked, and reinvested. Alongside technological growth, professionalization increased. Churches hired financial managers, legal teams, and media specialists. No longer were these operations managed solely by pastors or volunteers. Large ministries operated like complex corporations, with divisions for finance, marketing, media, education, and events. This professionalization brought efficiency, but also complexity. Transparency became challenging even when intentions were genuine. Millions of dollars were moving across multiple platforms, across states and countries. Auditing, reporting, and accountability required expertise most congregations could not provide themselves. And yet, the human element remained central. Donors were motivated by trust, faith, and the narrative presented by leaders. Sermons, conferences, books, and online content were designed not just to inspire devotion but to create engagement that fostered giving. In essence, storytelling became a crucial part of the economy. The scale of wealth became increasingly apparent. Some churches began owning multiple campuses, sprawling office buildings, and vast media complexes. Merchandise sales, book deals, conferences, speaking tours, and licensing agreements generated additional revenue. This diversification made churches financially resilient, but it also amplified public scrutiny. Questions arose. How much of the wealth was necessary for ministry? How transparent were the financial operations? And how much influence did money bring beyond spiritual guidance? In parallel, some churches began expanding their presence internationally. Satellite feeds reached Africa, Asia, and South America. Streaming platforms eventually enabled a global audience to participate in services, donate online, or purchase products. The modern church economy was no longer a national phenomenon, it was global. During this period, leadership styles evolved. Pastors became brands. Their image, charisma, and media presence were managed carefully. Consultants advised on stage design, lighting, sound, and camera angles. Sermons were rehearsed, edited, and optimized for broadcast. The line between ministry and marketing became increasingly subtle. At the same time, accountability challenges grew. Lawsuits, financial irregularities, and ethical questions occasionally emerged, drawing public attention. Some leaders faced criticism for lavish lifestyles, raising concerns about the balance between spiritual leadership and personal gain. Yet, these challenges rarely diminished the overall influence of the church economy. Even when controversies arose, systems were in place to sustain operations. Diversified revenue streams, loyal followings, and professional management ensured that the growth trajectory continued. The digital era further strengthened these structures. Online donations, mobile giving apps, and social media outreach enabled ministries to maintain engagement, even during crises. Empty auditoriums were no longer a threat. Influence could persist digitally without ever filling a physical seat. Another key feature of this evolution was generational change. New audiences consumed content differently. Younger followers engaged primarily through online platforms, live streams, and social media. Church leaders adapted by creating content optimized for digital consumption, short clips, interactive campaigns, and multimedia presentations. This shift allowed the economy to grow in new directions while retaining older models of giving. By the early 2000s, the billion-dollar potential of the church economy was evident. Large ministries operated like multinational corporations, with structured divisions, automated revenue streams, and strategic media planning. Donations were predictable, investments were planned, and influence was carefully managed. But despite this scale, the system retained its human element. Followers contributed not just because of the infrastructure, but because of the narrative, the connection, the sense of purpose they derived from being part of something larger. This human connection was the engine that powered the system. Without it, the structures, media, and finances would mean little. At the same time, the complexity of this system introduced subtle risks. Without oversight, transparency, or regulatory clarity, questions about ethics, influence, and accountability grew. Patterns emerged where financial growth sometimes overshadowed spiritual priorities. Some organizations operated efficiently and ethically, others faced public scrutiny. In essence, the 1990s and 2000s solidified the template for the modern church economy. Expansion through media and technology, diversified revenue streams, professionalized management structures, global influence and digital engagement, a careful balance of trust, narrative, and financial. Operations. By the end of this period, the stage was set for the current era, a church economy operating at a scale previously unimaginable, deeply integrated with technology, media, and global networks, while still rooted in human devotion and narrative. And this is where our story bridges to the next chapter, the modern church economy, a system of billions, spread across continents, sustained by influence, innovation, and faith. Understanding these roots is essential to grasp the scale and mechanisms that define today's industry. When we speak of megachurches and large ministries today, it's tempting to think only of their influence, their sermons, and their global reach. But behind the scenes, there is another measure of power, the scale of wealth. Wealth that is often invisible to the casual observer, yet astonishing in its magnitude. To truly grasp the scope, we need to step beyond the stage, beyond the music, beyond the rituals. We need to look at properties, media networks, investments, salaries, and the flow of donations that sustain these operations. Some of the largest ministries in America manage assets and revenue streams that rival mid-sized corporations. They own multiple campuses spanning hundreds of acres, equipped with auditoriums, offices, educational facilities, and recreational spaces. Some campuses are so expansive that they resemble small towns, with their own infrastructure, parking systems, and administrative centers. A simple glance at the landscape tells part of the story. Sprawling church campuses in suburban and urban centers, often with parking lots capable of holding thousands of vehicles. The scale is visible, but the financial implications are far more significant than mere land ownership. Take, for example, the purchase and construction of facilities. A single campus can cost tens of millions of dollars. The costs don't end with construction, maintenance, utilities, staff salaries, and operational expenses continue year after year. Many churches offset these expenses through multiple revenue streams, creating a self-sustaining system of financial growth. And wealth is not limited to physical property. Many ministries own media assets. Television networks, radio stations, and online platforms form a critical part of the revenue ecosystem. The content produced, sermons, music, teaching programs, documentaries, is designed to reach followers far beyond local congregations. And with this reach comes revenue, advertising, sponsorships, and global donations. One of the most overlooked components of wealth is merchandise and product sales. Books, devotional materials, music albums, apparel, and branded merchandise create additional revenue streams. Some ministries have entire publishing divisions, producing hundreds of titles annually. Best-selling books, combined with speaking engagements, create a cycle of influence that simultaneously boosts financial income and public reach. Conferences and events are another significant component. Mega events attract thousands of attendees, sometimes from across the world. Ticket sales, event merchandise, travel packages, and associated donations can generate millions of dollars per event. These gatherings serve dual purposes, spiritual engagement and financial growth. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this wealth is the human psychology that sustains it. Contributions are not random. They are carefully cultivated through messaging, personal connection, and narrative. Followers are reminded repeatedly through sermons, newsletters, social media, and campaigns that their support fuels a larger mission. This sense of purpose encourages loyalty and increases donation levels. Large ministries also benefit from the compounding effect of recurring donations. Unlike a one-time gift, automated giving through online platforms ensures predictable, consistent income. Followers can donate weekly, monthly, or annually, often without actively thinking about it. These recurring streams create stability and allow ministries to plan ambitious projects, invest in media expansion, or launch new campuses. Another dimension of wealth lies in investments and financial planning. Churches increasingly act as financial entities, investing funds in diversified portfolios. Real estate, bonds, equities, and business ventures create additional streams of income. Some ministries operate foundations or endowments that fund charitable projects, but also function as long-term financial instruments that support operational sustainability. Salaries and compensation for leadership are another aspect of scale. While some leaders take modest salaries, others earn figures that rival corporate executives. These figures are often justified internally as necessary to sustain a high level of leadership and management capability. When coupled with housing, travel, and other benefits, the personal financial scale of top leaders can become substantial. It's also critical to understand the role of tax-exempt status. Most large churches operate as nonprofit organizations, meaning donations are often tax-deductible. While this status is intended to facilitate charitable giving and public benefit, it also allows organizations to accumulate significant wealth without the tax obligations that apply to corporations. The result is a unique system in which resources can grow rapidly while maintaining public legitimacy. Globally, this scale is amplified. Ministries in the United States often influence international operations, partnerships, and donations. Satellite campuses, online streams, and affiliated ministries create a worldwide ecosystem. A donor in one country can contribute to a ministry halfway around the world, further increasing the financial footprint. And yet, it is not simply the accumulation of wealth that defines these ministries. It is how wealth is structured, managed, and reinvested. Multiple divisions oversee different streams: media, property, events, publications, digital giving, each with its own budget, team, and reporting structure. Efficiency becomes essential. Every dollar, every resource is allocated with purpose. Some ministries even operate with internal financial auditing departments, external consultants, and professional accounting staff. This level of organization allows them to maintain operational stability and scale globally while minimizing risk. But despite this sophistication, wealth in the church economy is not without controversy. Public scrutiny increases with scale. Lavish facilities, luxury vehicles, and high salaries often provoke debate. Followers may question priorities, donors may demand accountability, and media coverage can shape public perception. Yet the system persists. It persists because it is carefully designed. Influence drives donations. Donations fund expansion. Expansion amplifies influence. Wealth is a tool that sustains the entire ecosystem. In understanding this, one begins to see the modern church not as a simple religious institution, but as a complex, multi-layered organization that manages vast resources that extend far beyond the physical walls of the auditorium. The next part of this chapter will explore the personal, cultural, and social implications of this wealth, how it impacts followers, communities, and public perception, while diving deeper into the interplay of finances, media, and influence in sustaining a billion-dollar ecosystem. Wealth in the church economy is more than a number on a balance sheet. It is influence, visibility, and the ability to shape culture. To understand the scale fully, we need to examine how money translates into power, not just within congregations but across society. One of the first ways wealth exerts influence is through media control. Television, radio, streaming platforms, and social media channels are expensive to maintain. But for large ministries, they are essential tools. They amplify the message, build the leader's personal brand, and encourage engagement from a global audience. Consider the cost of running a nationwide or international broadcast. Satellite feeds, studio maintenance, camera crews, lighting, sound, and editing staff all require substantial investment. Yet the returns in donations, merchandise sales, book purchases, and event attendance often justify the expense many times over. And this is where strategy comes into play. Ministries do not operate in a vacuum. Every dollar is allocated with purpose. Investments in media production, event planning, and marketing campaigns are designed to maximize engagement, retention, and contribution. Wealth enables the scaling of influence, which in turn generates more wealth, a self-reinforcing cycle. Wealth also allows churches to invest in real estate expansion, often on a massive scale. Multi-campus churches, sprawling suburban properties, and urban megastructures not only accommodate large congregations, but also act as visible symbols of stability, success, and authority. These properties are not simply functional, they are strategic. The design of auditoriums, stage layouts, and even parking lots contributes to the perception of scale and professionalism. A large campus communicates credibility, encourages attendance, and reassures donors that their contributions are part of a serious operation. Another avenue of wealth utilization is events and conferences. Ministries host gatherings that attract thousands, often from across the country or world. Ticket sales, travel packages, sponsorships, and merchandise sales can generate millions per event. Beyond revenue, these events solidify community, create loyalty, and enhance the leader's brand, all of which feed back into the financial system. Book sales are another critical component. Some pastors and ministries operate their own publishing arms, producing hundreds of titles annually. Bestseller lists are not merely symbols of spiritual influence. They are revenue streams, marketing tools, and engagement strategies rolled into one. Books often serve as gateways to conferences, media channels, and online communities, effectively linking every revenue stream into an integrated network. But wealth is not only about generating money, it is also about perception and authority. Lavish campuses, high-quality media production, and visible luxury items, whether vehicles, homes, or personal travel, signal success. They reinforce the idea that the ministry is effective, well-managed, and capable of achieving its stated mission. For donors, this perception encourages trust and inspires generosity. At the same time, this visibility can be controversial. Critics often question whether wealth is being accumulated ethically or in alignment with spiritual priorities. Questions about compensation, spending, and transparency have arisen repeatedly, especially as ministries scale. Yet, for many followers, the scale of wealth is interpreted as a reflection of divine favor, a tangible measure of success, or a necessary tool for ministry growth. Beyond property and media, wealth allows churches to engage in global initiatives. Missions, humanitarian projects, and international outreach programs are funded by resources generated domestically. These programs extend the ministry's influence while maintaining the narrative of spiritual purpose. The economic reach is vast, and the impact is measurable, both financially and socially. Wealth also enables strategic partnerships. Ministries may collaborate with corporations, nonprofit organizations, or governmental agencies to amplify their work. These alliances provide additional resources, enhance credibility, and expand audience reach. They also highlight the dual role of wealth, supporting spiritual objectives while reinforcing operational sustainability. The human side of the wealth equation is equally important. Large ministries employ hundreds, sometimes thousands of staff members. Roles span pastoral care, administration, media, event management, finance, and legal compliance. Each employee represents a layer in the operational hierarchy, helping to maintain efficiency, transparency, and organizational growth. Without this human capital, even the largest budgets cannot achieve the desired reach or influence. At the center of it all remains the leader, the public face of the ministry. Wealth enables leadership to maintain visibility, credibility, and authority. It allows them to travel, appear on media outlets, publish content, and engage with followers in ways that perpetuate influence. Charisma alone is insufficient. It must be backed by the infrastructure that wealth provides. To understand the scale of wealth in this industry, consider a hypothetical large ministry. Multiple campuses across several states, each worth tens of millions of dollars. Annual donations exceeding tens of millions, collected via automated online giving, physical tithes, and event. Participation. Media operations including television, radio, streaming platforms, and social media production teams. Publishing and merchandise divisions generating millions annually. Conferences and global events bringing in additional revenue. Investments in real estate, financial, instruments and long-term funds. Hundreds of paid staff, consultants, and operational teams. The total economic footprint rivals many mid-sized corporations, yet the organization presents itself primarily as a spiritual institution. And this is why understanding wealth is critical to understanding modern ministries. It is not an accessory to faith. It is a central component of how influence is scaled, sustained, and perpetuated. To truly comprehend the scale of wealth in the modern church economy, numbers alone are not enough. We need to look at real examples, ministries that operate at the upper limits of financial influence, to see how wealth is accumulated, managed, and leveraged. Consider one of the largest megachurches in the United States. Its main campus spans hundreds of acres. Multiple satellite campuses extend its reach across the country. Television broadcasts and online streaming platforms ensure that followers can engage from anywhere in the world. Annual donations reach tens of millions, supplemented by book sales, conferences, merchandise, and media partnerships. Staff numbers exceed several hundred, with specialized teams for finance, media, legal compliance, and pastoral care. Investments in real estate and financial portfolios add layers of income beyond what donors provide. For the average observer, these numbers are difficult to grasp. For followers, the scale often serves as a symbol of success, influence, and divine favor. For critics, it raises questions about ethics, transparency, and priorities. Another example lies in ministries that leverage media to its fullest extent. Television networks, radio stations, and digital platforms are not merely tools for preaching, they are revenue-generating machines. Advertising partnerships, sponsorships, paid programming, and subscription services create significant income. A single popular program can generate millions in donations globally, while simultaneously expanding the ministry's influence. Conferences provide yet another lens into the financial ecosystem. Some events attract tens of thousands of attendees, often traveling from multiple countries. Ticket sales, travel packages, merchandise, and on-site donations contribute millions in revenue. Beyond the immediate financial gain, these gatherings strengthen the personal connection between the ministry and its followers, encouraging long-term loyalty and recurring contributions. The interplay between wealth and influence is not limited to money alone. It extends into social and political capital. Ministries with substantial wealth often engage in partnerships with community organizations, nonprofits, and even political entities. Donations may fund charitable initiatives, scholarships, and humanitarian projects. These initiatives reinforce the ministry's public image and expand its network of influence. Wealth allows ministries to operate simultaneously on spiritual, social, and political planes. Consider a scenario where a ministry invests millions in local community development. Schools are funded, food programs are organized, and housing initiatives are launched. On the surface, these efforts are altruistic. Beneath the surface, they also strengthen the ministry's brand, visibility, and influence. Wealth enables this dual impact, both spiritual and social. But wealth is not without its challenges. Public scrutiny intensifies as financial scale increases. High salaries, luxury homes, private jets, and extravagant campus facilities often provoke debate. Critics question whether such wealth aligns with spiritual missions. Internal donors may also ask for transparency and accountability. Mismanagement or lack of clarity can erode trust and, in extreme cases, invite legal investigation. Transparency is a particularly complex issue. Most large ministries operate as tax-exempt organizations, allowing donations to remain largely untaxed. While this status is legally sanctioned, it creates both opportunity and scrutiny. Followers expect contributions to be used for spiritual and charitable purposes, yet navigating multi-million-dollar budgets, media operations, and international expansion can make financial management opaque. The modern church economy is, in essence, a sophisticated system of financial engineering. Donations, revenue streams, investments, and expenses are managed with precision to ensure sustainability and growth. This requires not only leadership skill, but also professional expertise in finance, media, law, and organizational management. Let's examine another dimension: the personal wealth of leaders. Salaries can vary widely, but some exceed millions per year, often supplemented by housing allowances, travel expenses, and other benefits. While critics highlight these figures as excessive, supporters argue they are necessary to maintain the operational complexity of a large ministry. Wealth enables leaders to focus fully on strategic growth, media outreach, and global engagement. This intersection of personal and organizational wealth is crucial to understanding the scale of influence. A leader's financial resources, combined with organizational assets, amplify both visibility and operational capacity. It's not merely about comfort or status, it is a tool for expanding reach and impact. Case studies also reveal patterns in how wealth is accumulated and reinvested. Ministries often diversify their revenue streams: property and real estate investments, media and broadcasting operations, publishing and merchandise sales, conferences, speaking tours, and event-based fundraising, online donations and subscription services. Each revenue stream reinforces the others. Books promote conferences. Conferences drive media engagement. Media expands online donations. The system is cyclical and self-sustaining, creating wealth on a scale that few secular organizations achieve in the same time frame. Global reach further amplifies these dynamics. Satellite feeds, live streams, and digital platforms allow ministries to operate beyond national borders. Donations flow in from international supporters, sometimes exceeding domestic contributions. This global expansion increases financial scale while also extending influence and credibility worldwide. Beyond money, wealth also facilitates strategic partnerships. Ministries collaborate with nonprofits, corporations, and community organizations to extend both mission and revenue. Partnerships allow ministries to leverage external expertise, expand programming, and gain additional legitimacy. This integration of resources creates a robust ecosystem where financial scale, influence, and impact reinforce each other. Yet with power comes responsibility. The larger the wealth, the greater the scrutiny. Ministries often face tough questions. Are donations being used ethically? Does leadership prioritize spiritual mission over material accumulation? How transparent are financial operations? Some ministries respond with meticulous reporting, audits, and public accountability measures. Others maintain minimal disclosure, relying on donor trust and narrative reinforcement. Either way, wealth management has become as critical to survival as spiritual leadership itself. The social implications are significant. Large ministries can influence public opinion, cultural norms, and even political decisions. Their wealth enables media campaigns, social initiatives, and community engagement on a scale unmatched by most other organizations. Followers often see this as a positive demonstration of capability and reach, while critics caution against the concentration of influence in the hands of a few leaders. Consider the example of ministries funding large-scale humanitarian efforts abroad. Schools, hospitals, and relief programs may be supported in developing regions. While these initiatives reflect spiritual and charitable goals, they also strengthen the ministry's global profile. Wealth, in this case, functions as both a practical and symbolic tool. To summarize, the scale of wealth in the modern church economy can be understood in several dimensions: physical assets, campuses, offices, auditoriums, and real estate, media and digital operations, TV, radio, streaming, social media, publishing, revenue streams, donations, merchandise, books, conferences, events, investments, financial portfolios, real estate holdings, foundations, leadership resources, salaries, travel, housing, operational budgets, global influence, international donations, missions, satellite campuses, strategic partnerships, collaborations with nonprofits, corporations, and community organizations. Each of these layers contributes to an ecosystem where wealth, influence, and spiritual mission are intertwined. Together, they create a system that can sustain operations at a scale rivaling multinational corporations while remaining rooted in faith and community. And yet, for all this wealth, the human connection remains at the core. Donations are not mechanical transactions. They are acts of trust, devotion, and belief. Followers are partners in the mission, and their participation is what allows wealth to translate into influence. Without engagement, even the most sophisticated financial systems would collapse. In this sense, the scale of wealth is inseparable from the scale of influence. Money amplifies voice. Property amplifies presence. Media amplifies reach. But it is human belief and participation that give the entire system meaning and momentum. As we close this chapter, it is clear that the church economy operates at an extraordinary scale. Assets, revenue streams, leadership compensation, media reach, global donations, all of these factors contribute to a system that is both complex and resilient. Wealth is a tool, influence is its amplification, and faith is the engine that sustains it. In the next chapter, we will examine how this wealth is perceived, challenged, and critiqued, exploring the controversies, public scrutiny, and ethical debates that arise when spiritual authority and financial power intersect. Understanding these dynamics is essential to grasp the full scope of the billion-dollar church economy. Money. It flows silently, invisibly, yet it determines much of what we see in the world of modern churches. Pews can be full or empty, sermons can be inspiring or forgettable. But the flow of money, donations, investments, event revenue, and media income is the engine that powers everything. Understanding how money moves in these ministries is essential. Without this insight, one cannot fully grasp the scale of influence, the structural decisions, or the ethical dilemmas that emerge at every level. Let's start at the most visible source: donations. For decades, congregants have given freely: tithes, offerings, pledges, and one-time gifts. In the past, these donations were collected in envelopes, sometimes weekly. Today, technology has transformed giving into a continuous, automated stream. Mobile apps, online portals, subscription-style recurring donations, and digital fundraising campaigns allow contributions 24 hours a day. A follower halfway across the world can donate to a church they have never visited in person. The physical presence of a congregation is no longer a prerequisite for financial support. But how exactly is this money allocated? Large ministries often divide funds across multiple categories: operational expenses, media production, staff salaries, campus maintenance, investments, charitable initiatives, and expansion projects. Each dollar is budgeted strategically. Professional financial teams, often with expertise in corporate management, oversee the flow. The objective is sustainability, ensuring that influence, outreach, and growth continue uninterrupted. A common misconception is that all donated money goes directly to spiritual programming. In reality, operational costs, sometimes exceeding millions annually, account for a significant portion. These include utilities, payroll, insurance, media production costs, property maintenance, and technology infrastructure. Without careful management, even generous donations can be quickly consumed by operational requirements. Transparency becomes the next challenge. Many followers expect openness regarding how their contributions are used. Some ministries publish annual reports, conduct audits, and provide detailed breakdowns of expenses. Others provide minimal disclosure, citing operational complexity or donor privacy. This variation in transparency raises questions. Are ministries ethically obligated to reveal every financial transaction? Should donors have the right to track their contributions? And perhaps most importantly, how do ministries balance operational discretion with accountability? To answer these questions, we must consider the legal and structural frameworks governing church finances. Most large ministries in the United States operate as 501c3 tax-exempt organizations. This status allows donations to be tax-deductible for the donor, and it exempts the organization from paying federal income tax. The intent is clear: encourage charitable giving. Yet, it also creates a system in which wealth can accumulate quickly without the oversight that applies to corporations. Within this system, churches often maintain multiple streams of income: direct donations, weekly, monthly, one-time gifts from followers, event revenue, ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, media and content, television programs, online streams, podcasts, and book sales, investments, real estate, endowments, and financial portfolios, merchandise and product sales, branded items, educational materials, music, and apparel. Each stream has unique accounting, oversight, and reporting requirements. Taken together, they form a complex financial ecosystem. Yet despite this complexity, few outside observers understand the magnitude of the flow. Some ministries report annual revenues in the tens of millions, sometimes even exceeding hundreds of millions. Donations from small individual contributions, when aggregated across thousands of followers, can create a level of wealth that rivals publicly traded companies. And with this scale comes both power and scrutiny. Public attention often focuses on leadership salaries, luxury lifestyles, and extravagant facilities. Critics ask whether these expenditures align with the stated spiritual mission. Supporters argue that leadership requires resources and infrastructure to sustain growth and reach. One of the most important but least understood aspects of church finances is internal allocation strategy. Ministries often separate revenue streams by purpose. Operational budgets cover payroll, utilities, and property maintenance. Media and marketing budgets fund global outreach and digital expansion. Event budgets manage conferences, workshops, and public programs. Charitable initiatives support local and international projects. These allocations are strategic. Ministries use funds not only to maintain operations but also to enhance influence and foster growth. Every dollar is leveraged to maximize both spiritual impact and financial sustainability. Consider online giving as an example. Donors often contribute for a specific purpose, a mission trip, a building fund, or a charitable initiative. Ministries, however, often allocate these funds within broader budget categories to maintain flexibility. This allows for unexpected expenses or strategic investment opportunities, but it also raises questions about donor intent and accountability. Transparency, therefore, is a balancing act. Ministries must satisfy followers' expectations, comply with legal requirements, and maintain operational flexibility. Missteps in this balance can generate public criticism, legal challenges, and reputational risk. Beyond domestic giving, global contributions add another layer of complexity. Ministries with international reach accept donations from followers across continents. Currency exchange, differing legal frameworks, and international financial regulations require sophisticated management. Tracking, auditing, and reporting such contributions demand resources and expertise. The rise of digital platforms has amplified these dynamics. Crowdfunding campaigns, live-streamed donation drives, and subscription-based giving programs create an almost continuous inflow of revenue. Automated systems ensure predictable cash flow, but they also require technical infrastructure, cybersecurity measures, and transparency mechanisms. Let's pause and consider the human element. Followers do not contribute merely because of doctrine. They give because they trust the institution and the leadership. Ministries cultivate this trust through messaging, engagement, and storytelling. They create a narrative in which donations are part of a larger spiritual mission. This combination of psychology and finance is essential to understanding money flow in modern churches. Case studies illustrate this clearly. Some megachurches generate millions annually from small, recurring donations. A follower giving $50 a month may seem minor, but multiplied by tens of thousands of supporters, it becomes a multi-million-dollar contribution stream. The same principle applies to merchandise, event tickets, and media subscriptions. Small contributions aggregated across a large engaged audience produce staggering results. Yet wealth without accountability carries risk. Internal audits, board oversight, and compliance with legal standards are critical to maintaining legitimacy. Ministries often employ certified accountants, auditors, and financial consultants to manage these systems. Transparency is not optional. It is necessary to maintain donor trust, public credibility, and operational sustainability. Another complexity arises with restricted versus unrestricted funds. Donors often specify how their contributions should be used. Restricted funds must be applied to the stated purpose, while unrestricted funds provide operational flexibility. Managing these funds requires precise accounting, and errors, whether intentional or accidental, can lead to legal or reputational consequences. As wealth grows, ministries also face decisions about investment and asset management. Real estate, endowments, and corporate partnerships expand financial capacity, but introduce additional layers of responsibility. Leaders must weigh risk, public perception, and spiritual mission when making investment decisions. Ultimately, the flow of money in modern churches is both a science and an art. It requires financial acumen, strategic planning, psychological insight, and ethical judgment. Without these components, even substantial donations cannot achieve sustained impact. To fully grasp how money flows in the church economy, we must look at real-world examples. Consider a megachurch with multiple campuses across several states, annual donations exceeding tens of millions, and media programs reaching millions globally. On paper, the scale is impressive. But what is more remarkable is how these funds are structured, allocated, and sometimes challenged. In many large ministries, donations are categorized in ways most followers never see. Operational costs, building funds, media budgets, salaries, and charitable initiatives may all be funded simultaneously, sometimes from the same sources of contributions. This financial flexibility allows ministries to respond to unexpected challenges, but it also raises questions about transparency and accountability. Controversies often emerge when donations are perceived as misaligned with intended purposes. For example, a follower may contribute to a building project only to find that part of their donation was used to fund media production or travel expenses. While legally permissible, such reallocation can generate public criticism, especially when media coverage highlights lavish spending or executive compensation. One notable case involved a high-profile televangelist whose ministry reported annual donations in the tens of millions. Investigations revealed that while a significant portion of contributions supported community programs and outreach, a large percentage was used for personal housing, luxury vehicles, and travel. Supporters argued that these expenditures were justified to maintain the ministry's global operations. Critics saw them as evidence of mismanagement and excess. Another ministry faced scrutiny for multi-million-dollar media contracts. Television networks and production studios were used to broadcast sermons, produce documentaries, and create online content. While these investments expanded the ministry's reach dramatically, they also sparked debate about priorities. Were funds primarily supporting spiritual engagement, or were they facilitating personal gain and branding? Transparency challenges often increase with size and complexity. Large ministries may operate multiple entities, nonprofit organizations, affiliated charities, publishing houses, and media networks. Each entity may have its own financial reporting, staff, and legal requirements. For followers and watchdog organizations, tracking every dollar becomes a near impossible task. One strategy some ministries use to maintain trust is external auditing. Independent accounting firms review donations, expenditures, and operational budgets. Audits are often shared publicly in annual reports or on ministry websites. While this process does not eliminate criticism, it demonstrates a commitment to accountability and can protect the organization from legal challenges. Another common approach is the use of advisory boards or financial councils. These bodies, often composed of trusted community leaders and financial professionals, provide oversight and strategic guidance. They review budgets, approve major expenditures, and ensure compliance with tax laws and charitable regulations. By creating an internal system of checks and balances, ministries can mitigate the risk of mismanagement. Despite these systems, challenges remain. The public often evaluates church wealth differently than corporate or governmental wealth. Luxury cars, multi-million-dollar homes, and lavish campuses are criticized in ways that might be overlooked in other sectors. This perception gap is fueled by the assumption that religious organizations should live modestly, even while managing resources at corporate scale. The tension between perception and operational necessity is constant. Ministries argue that scale and professionalism are essential to sustain outreach, media operations, and global engagement. Critics question whether spiritual priorities are being overshadowed by material accumulation. The debate is rarely straightforward. Let's consider case studies to illustrate this complexity. Case Study 1. Multi-Campus Mega Ministry. Donations exceed $50 million annually. The ministry operates 5 campuses, each with auditoriums, classrooms, and offices. A professional media team produces daily content for TV and online platforms. Salaries for leadership and staff are substantial, but the ministry also funds scholarships, community outreach, and international missions. Critics focus on the high salaries and luxury housing, while supporters emphasize the scale of charitable work and global influence. Case Study 2. Media-Focused Ministry. This ministry generates most of its revenue from broadcasting and online donations. Millions of viewers worldwide contribute small recurring donations, which collectively amount to tens of millions annually. The ministry reinvests heavily in media production, marketing, and digital outreach. Controversy arises when expenditures include high-end production studios and executive travel. The ministry defends these costs as necessary to maintain professional quality and global reach. Case Study 3. Diversified Revenue Model. Some ministries operate a combination of property, media, events, and merchandise. Book sales, apparel, conferences, and online content create multiple income streams. Financial complexity increases scrutiny, particularly when unrestricted funds are used across various operations. Yet this model allows flexibility, growth, and sustainability, all essential in a competitive media landscape. The recurring theme is clear: the larger the wealth, the greater the scrutiny, and the more sophisticated the financial systems must be. Transparency is often the deciding factor between public trust and suspicion. Ministries that clearly communicate how donations are used, provide audited reports, and maintain open channels with followers tend to maintain credibility. Ministries that obscure allocations or fail to address public concerns face reputational risk, which can impact donations and influence. The human element cannot be overstated. Followers want to feel their contributions make a difference. Ministries that engage supporters through storytelling, impact reports, and tangible outcomes reinforce trust and encourage recurring donations. This creates a symbiotic relationship. Financial support enables influence, and influence motivates contributions. Digital platforms have added another layer of transparency and complexity. Online giving platforms often provide donors with real-time updates, receipts, and progress tracking for specific campaigns. Crowdfunding-style donation drives allow donors to see how individual contributions contribute to larger goals. While this transparency can enhance trust, it also increases public visibility, meaning errors or mismanagement can become instantly public and viral. Global donations present additional challenges. Ministries accepting funds from multiple countries must navigate different legal frameworks, currency exchanges, and reporting standards. Without sophisticated financial management, international contributions can be lost, misallocated, or create compliance issues. Wealth at a global scale demands professional oversight, legal expertise, and operational infrastructure. Ethical dilemmas also emerge around restricted versus unrestricted donations. Restricted donations are earmarked for specific purposes, while unrestricted funds can be applied wherever the ministry sees fit. Managing these funds requires careful accounting and sensitivity to donor intent. Misuse or perceived misuse can create scandals, damage credibility, and reduce future contributions. Leadership compensation is another critical transparency issue. While corporate executives often earn comparable or higher salaries, religious leaders face unique scrutiny. The expectation of humility clashes with operational reality. Leading a multi-million-dollar organization requires time, skill, and responsibility. Ministries often argue that competitive compensation ensures leadership quality and organizational effectiveness. Critics see high salaries as evidence of excess. This tension reflects the broader theme of accountability versus autonomy. Ministries must balance operational flexibility, leadership discretion, and public transparency. Too much disclosure can expose vulnerabilities. Too little invites criticism. The challenge is continuous and complex. Finally, let's consider public perception. The way wealth is presented shapes engagement, trust, and loyalty. Ministries often curate an image of success and impact: professional media, modern campuses, visible charitable work. These signals reassure followers that contributions are making a difference. Conversely, negative media coverage or scandals can erode trust, even if the underlying financial management is sound. Understanding the flow of money in large ministries is therefore not just a matter of accounting. It is a study of human behavior, trust, narrative, ethics, and influence. Every dollar, every investment, every donation intersects with these forces. Wealth is power, yes, but it is also responsibility, perception, and transparency and accountability are not optional in the modern church economy. They are the very foundation that allows billions of dollars to flow through ministries while maintaining public trust. Without them, influence collapses, Donations decline, and reputations are damaged, sometimes irreparably. Governance structures vary across ministries, but the most effective systems share common features. Independent boards or councils oversee financial management. Regular audits by certified accounting firms ensure accuracy. Public reporting communicates income, expenditures, and program. Impact: legal compliance with tax laws and nonprofit regulations. Internal controls to prevent misuse or misallocation of funds. These mechanisms are designed not only to ensure financial integrity, but also to reassure donors that their contributions serve the intended spiritual and charitable purposes. Let's explore governance in practice. Many large ministries operate multi-tiered boards, sometimes called elder councils, financial oversight committees, or advisory boards. These boards are tasked with approving budgets, reviewing major expenditures, and guiding strategic investment decisions. Their presence can protect ministries from legal scrutiny, financial mismanagement, and internal conflict. In some organizations, boards include external professionals, accountants, lawyers, or business leaders who are not part of the congregation. This external perspective adds credibility and ensures that financial decisions meet professional standards. In others, boards are comprised of internal members, trusted by the leadership but sometimes criticized for lacking independence. The composition of the board often reflects the balance between accountability and operational control. Auditing is another critical tool. Annual independent audits provide a detailed review of donations, expenditures, salaries, and investments. Reports may be shared with donors, regulatory authorities, or publicly online. For ministries handling tens or hundreds of millions of dollars annually, audits are essential for credibility. They reveal how funds are allocated, whether internal controls are effective, and where risks may exist. Case studies highlight both successes and failures. Transparency success. A large media-focused ministry implemented a comprehensive financial reporting system. Every donation, from online micro-donations to multi-million-dollar gifts, was tracked and categorized. Annual reports were published online, highlighting operational expenses, program funding, leadership compensation, and global charitable projects. Followers had real-time access to updates on specific campaigns, such as building projects or mission trips. This openness fostered trust, encouraged recurring donations, and minimized public criticism. Transparency failure. Another high-profile ministry faced scandal when investigative journalists uncovered misallocation of funds. Restricted donations meant for charitable work were diverted to executive salaries and luxury travel. Despite high revenue, the lack of clear reporting and oversight eroded public trust. Donations declined, and legal investigations were initiated. This example illustrates how wealth without rigorous transparency can be a double-edged sword. Tools for transparency are increasingly digital. Ministries use accounting software, donor management platforms, and online dashboards to track contributions, campaign progress, and program expenditures. These tools not only improve efficiency but also allow for real-time reporting. Followers can see exactly how their donations are applied, which strengthens engagement and confidence. Another layer of complexity arises with international donations. Ministries receiving contributions from multiple countries face challenges including currency conversion, international tax laws, and differing nonprofit regulations. Professional oversight is required to ensure compliance and maintain transparency across borders. Mistakes can lead to legal consequences, reputational harm, or financial loss. Ethical dilemmas remain at the core of transparency debates. Even when funds are managed appropriately, public perception matters. Luxury facilities, high salaries, and extravagant travel may be legally and operationally justified, but they invite scrutiny. Ministries must balance operational needs with public expectation of modesty, demonstrating that wealth is a tool, not an indulgence. Leadership compensation is often the most scrutinized area. Some ministries justify multi-million-dollar salaries as necessary to attract talent capable of managing large, complex organizations. Others argue that excessive pay undermines spiritual credibility. Ministries addressing this challenge openly, with board approval and public disclosure, tend to maintain stronger donor trust. Beyond internal governance, ministries also navigate regulatory oversight. In the U.S., 501c3 tax-exempt status requires adherence to nonprofit regulations. Misuse of funds, political lobbying beyond legal limits, or improper financial reporting can jeopardize tax status. Ministries with robust compliance teams manage these risks through careful documentation, reporting, and legal review. Case studies illustrate diverse strategies. Example 1. A multi-campus ministry with a global online presence implemented a layered oversight model. Each campus maintained independent accounting records, which were consolidated at the headquarters. Monthly internal audits were conducted, and an annual external audit ensured compliance. Public summaries highlighted both operational costs and charitable spending, fostering trust across domestic and international donors. Example 2. A publishing-heavy ministry adopted a different approach, combining media revenue tracking with donation oversight. Specific campaigns, such as book launches or online courses, had dedicated accounting teams. Restricted funds were carefully monitored, and reports were publicly shared. Transparency in this case increased donor engagement, improved event attendance, and supported consistent growth. Yet transparency is not merely a technical matter. It is a social contract between ministries and their followers. Donors invest more than money. They invest trust, belief, and hope. Ministries that recognize this relationship treat transparency as a core ethical principle, not a legal formality. Failures often occur when the social contract is violated. Even minor miscommunications about fund allocation can spiral into public controversy. In the age of social media, perceived misuse of funds can go viral within hours, damaging credibility and reducing contributions. Internationally, scandals provide cautionary examples. Ministries with cross-border operations sometimes face allegations of misappropriated funds, improper accounting, or lack of oversight. These cases highlight the need for robust governance, cultural sensitivity, and professional financial management. The higher the scale of operations, the more essential transparency becomes. The flow of money in the church economy is therefore both an operational necessity and a moral responsibility. Ministries must balance efficiency, strategic growth, donor intent, and ethical considerations. Wealth is a powerful tool, but without accountability, it can become a liability. Digital tools, internal governance, board oversight, and auditing form the backbone of modern financial transparency. Ministries that excel in these areas often enjoy greater trust, consistent donations, and stronger influence. Those that fail risk scandal, loss of credibility, and operational setbacks. In the final analysis, transparency is not just about numbers. It is about narrative, trust, and ethics. Followers want to know that their contributions are meaningful. Leaders want to ensure sustainability, and society demands accountability. Navigating these intersecting expectations requires professionalism, integrity, and foresight. As this chapter closes, one truth becomes clear. Money flow and transparency define the modern church economy. They determine operational stability, public credibility, and the ethical standing of ministries worldwide. Without transparency, influence is fragile. With transparency, wealth becomes a tool, not a threat, to spiritual, social, and global impact. The next chapter will explore the human side of this economy, how followers, donors, and communities interact with wealth, how trust is built or broken, and how influence extends far beyond the pulpit into cultural and political realms. Understanding the human response to wealth is the next step in unraveling the billion-dollar church industry. Power is rarely obvious. In the modern church economy, it is subtle, pervasive, and often invisible. Money flows, buildings rise, media spreads, and influence spreads alongside. But influence is not just measured in dollars. It is measured in attention, loyalty, and trust. It is measured in the ability to shape beliefs, culture, and behavior. Large ministries wield influence at multiple levels. Domestically, they shape congregational life, community projects, and local culture. Globally, they reach audiences through media, conferences, online content, and publications. Influence is amplified by wealth, but it is maintained by perception and narrative. Consider the role of the leader. A charismatic pastor can inspire devotion and loyalty far beyond the walls of their auditorium. Their voice, both literal and symbolic, sets the tone for the ministry. Sermons, books, social media posts, and public appearances establish authority and trust. Followers often see the leader as a spiritual guide, ethical compass, and source of practical advice, all of which amplifies influence. Wealth, of course, supports this influence. It enables media production, luxurious but functional campuses, international outreach, and events that bring thousands together. But wealth alone is not sufficient. Influence depends on how the narrative is constructed and delivered. A multi-million-dollar campus communicates stability and success, but it also communicates credibility. A well-produced sermon can reach millions, but only if it resonates with the audience's beliefs and emotions. Public perception is therefore central. Ministries carefully manage how they appear to followers, media, and critics. Branding, marketing, and storytelling are not incidental, they are strategic. Social media posts, professionally produced videos, newsletters, and event photography all contribute to a curated image of success, morality, and impact. Followers respond to this curated image. When presented with clear narratives about charitable work, community impact, and spiritual growth, they are more likely to contribute financially, participate in events, and spread the ministry's message. The cycle of influence, trust, and financial support becomes self-reinforcing. Controversy arises when public perception conflicts with internal realities. Consider high-profile scandals involving misused funds, luxurious lifestyles, or ethical lapses. Media coverage amplifies scrutiny, followers question leadership, and donations can decline rapidly. In these moments, transparency, communication, and narrative management become critical. Ministries with strong oversight, clear communication, and visible accountability often weather crises more successfully than those that obscure information. One way ministries maintain influence is through community integration. Programs such as scholarships, food distribution, youth mentoring, and international aid create visible evidence of impact. Followers witness the tangible benefits of their contributions, which strengthens loyalty and trust. Communities perceive the ministry as a force for good, enhancing cultural credibility and influence. Events and conferences are another critical tool. Large gatherings, sometimes tens of thousands strong, reinforce belonging and loyalty. High-production events, engaging speakers, and immersive experiences make followers feel part of a movement larger than themselves. Money spent on such events is not frivolous, it is an investment in influence, engagement, and cultural reach. Media reach is equally crucial. Television broadcasts, podcasts, online sermons, and social media channels allow ministries to reach millions beyond physical campuses. Every post, every video, every share contributes to public perception. Followers are not passive. They interact, comment, share, and amplify the message. Influence extends far beyond the pulpit. Digital algorithms play a role too. Ministries that understand engagement metrics, peak viewing times, and content strategy can maximize reach. Wealth allows for professional teams to manage digital presence, create polished content, and analyze audience behavior. Influence becomes measurable, scalable, and repeatable. Yet influence is fragile. Leadership missteps, ethical lapses, or inconsistent messaging can erode trust rapidly. Followers may question motives, skeptics may amplify criticism, and the media may focus on failure rather than impact. Influence, therefore, is not a static asset. It requires constant cultivation, maintenance, and strategic investment. One notable method for maintaining influence is personal connection. Leaders use storytelling, testimonials, and direct engagement to create emotional bonds. Social media comments, email newsletters, and personal outreach allow followers to feel seen, valued, and spiritually guided. These bonds often translate directly into financial support and advocacy. Case studies illustrate this dynamic clearly. Case Study 1: The Mega Media Ministry. With multiple campuses, international broadcasts, and annual events attracting tens of thousands, this ministry uses narrative and visibility to build influence. Followers see leaders traveling globally, hosting conferences, and engaging with media. Community projects and charitable work reinforce the message. Wealth amplifies reach, but trust is cultivated through consistent messaging, emotional connection, and transparency. Case Study 2: The Global Outreach Church. Focused on international missions, this ministry leverages media and local engagement to maintain influence. Donations fund schools, hospitals, and community projects. Followers see tangible outcomes, which reinforces credibility. Leadership uses storytelling, social proof, and digital communication to maintain loyalty. Even critics acknowledge the visible impact, demonstrating how influence can coexist with scrutiny when managed strategically. Cultural influence is another dimension. Ministries often shape norms, beliefs, and behaviors in communities. Lifestyle messaging, spiritual practices, and moral guidance all reflect broader cultural influence. Wealth enables ministries to produce professional materials, host large-scale events, and maintain media presence, reinforcing cultural reach. At the same time, wealth and influence attract criticism. Skeptics argue that lavish spending, high executive compensation, and global expansion reflect priorities that may diverge from spiritual mission. Followers must reconcile admiration with ethical considerations, creating tension between trust, perception, and influence. Political influence is also a factor. Wealth and public visibility allow some ministries to engage with political figures, advocate for policy positions, and participate in social initiatives. While the extent of influence varies by ministry and country, the capacity to shape public discourse is real. This influence is amplified by media presence, follower engagement, and visibility in public events. Leadership charisma, financial resources, media sophistication, and ethical positioning all intersect to create influence. Wealth is the engine, perception is the fuel, and trust is the lubricant. Without any of these, influence diminishes rapidly. Influence is only as strong as the response it elicits. Followers are not passive observers. They are active participants in the economy of trust, devotion, and financial support. How they perceive leaders, ministries, and messaging directly shapes the cultural and financial footprint of the church. Many followers are motivated by faith and trust, but their behavior is also guided by narrative and perception. Ministries carefully craft stories of impact, charity, and spiritual transformation to reinforce loyalty. When followers feel their contributions result in tangible outcomes, a new school, a relief project, or a broadcasted sermon that inspires millions, trust deepens. That trust, in turn, encourages ongoing financial support and social advocacy. Social proof is powerful. Followers often take cues from the behavior of others. Testimonials, video stories, social media posts, and visible acts of giving create a reinforcing loop. Seeing peers contribute, attend events, or publicly support a ministry encourages others to do the same. Influence, in this context, becomes exponential. Small actions ripple across large networks. Case studies highlight these dynamics. Case Study 1: Global Giving Campaigns. A ministry launched a campaign for international relief. Short videos highlighted the impact of donations. Followers posted their contributions on social media, and progress was updated in real time. Millions contributed small amounts, cumulatively generating multi-million-dollar results. The combination of trust, narrative, and visibility drove engagement far beyond what individual donors could achieve. Case Study 2: Community Integration. Local ministries that integrate into communities through schools, food programs, and mentorship cultivate social influence alongside financial support. Followers perceive tangible outcomes in their neighborhoods. These visible impacts reinforce credibility, increase attendance, and foster a sense of belonging, making influence a social as well as spiritual phenomenon. Public perception, however, is a double-edged sword. Wealth and influence invite scrutiny, criticism, and sometimes scandal. Media coverage often highlights extravagant spending, luxury lifestyles, and financial opacity. For large ministries, even minor missteps can be amplified, sometimes overshadowing years of charitable work and positive impact. Scandals reveal the fragile balance between trust and influence. Leadership controversies, misuse of funds, or ethical lapses can erode credibility overnight. Followers may question motives, donor confidence can decline, and the ministry's influence can be severely weakened. Yet some ministries manage to survive and even thrive after scandals, often through transparency, apology, and renewed focus on mission-driven initiatives. Consider the role of crisis management. Ministries that respond quickly with clarity and accountability tend to retain followers and rebuild trust. Public statements, independent audits, and tangible corrective measures demonstrate commitment to integrity. Conversely, ministries that obscure or deflect criticism risk long-term damage to both influence and finances. Media presence amplifies both reputation and scrutiny. Social media platforms, news outlets, and digital forums ensure that wealth, actions, and controversies are visible to a global audience. Leaders must therefore be constantly aware that influence is inseparable from public perception. Every message, campaign, or appearance contributes to an evolving narrative that followers and critics alike will interpret. Influence is not limited to wealth alone. Charisma, rhetoric, and emotional connection are equally important. A leader who inspires devotion can maintain influence even when finances are constrained. Conversely, financial abundance without emotional resonance may fail to cultivate loyalty. Successful ministries integrate both. Wealth facilitates operations and expansion, while authentic leadership maintains trust and engagement. Ethical considerations are central. Ministries must decide how to balance operational needs, cultural impact, and follower expectations. Investments in media, facilities, and staff can enhance influence, but they must be justified transparently. Followers are increasingly aware of financial flows and expect accountability alongside spiritual guidance. International reach adds complexity. Ministries operating globally must navigate cultural expectations, legal frameworks, and diverse follower perceptions. A strategy effective in one region may be misunderstood in another. Communication, transparency, and cultural sensitivity become crucial to maintaining influence without alienating supporters or attracting criticism. Case studies illustrate both successes and failures. Success story: international missions. A ministry with global operations implemented strict auditing, regular updates to followers, and culturally tailored communication. Projects ranged from building schools to healthcare initiatives. Followers worldwide could track progress and see tangible impact. Influence grew as trust was reinforced by transparency and cultural sensitivity. Failure story: luxury versus mission. Another ministry faced backlash after high-profile coverage revealed lavish spending on executive travel and housing. Donors who had previously supported charitable initiatives felt misled. Influence declined rapidly, donations dropped, and reputation suffered. Even though operational needs may have justified some expenditures, public perception was decisive. The human element is central to influence. Followers are guided not just by doctrine but by narrative, experience, and perceived authenticity. Ministries that maintain emotional connection, demonstrate impact, and uphold ethical standards can wield influence far beyond what wealth alone could achieve. Conversely, when perception and reality diverge, influence diminishes, regardless of financial resources. Another aspect is cultural shaping. Ministries often promote lifestyle norms, ethical principles, and moral frameworks. Social influence extends into education, family practices, media consumption, and political attitudes. Leaders with large platforms can subtly guide behavior, sometimes globally, in ways that surpass traditional community influence. Political influence is increasingly evident. Ministries with wealth and media reach can engage policymakers, participate in advocacy, and shape public discourse. While legal boundaries prevent direct political endorsement in some countries, indirect influence through cultural and social channels is substantial. Leaders often navigate this landscape carefully, balancing spiritual mission with broader societal impact. Public perception of political engagement, however, is sensitive. Followers may support some initiatives while criticizing others. Wealth and influence amplify visibility. Scrutiny increases proportionally. Maintaining credibility requires consistent messaging, transparency, and careful ethical consideration. Technology has transformed influence. Social media, streaming services, podcasts, and online communities allow ministries to reach audiences instantaneously and globally. Algorithms amplify engagement and track follower interaction, giving leaders insight into which messages resonate and how influence spreads. Digital platforms also expose ministries to immediate public reaction, requiring rapid response and proactive communication. Influence is therefore a dynamic, multifaceted phenomenon. It depends on wealth and financial infrastructure, leadership charisma and communication, narrative and storytelling, transparency and ethical management, cultural and social integration, media presence and technological strategy, public perception and crisis response. In conclusion, power in the modern church economy is never static. It ebbs and flows with financial management, media presence, leadership credibility, and societal perception. Wealth amplifies influence, but it is trust, narrative, and ethical stewardship that sustain it over time. Followers are both participants and arbiters, shaping influence through engagement, contribution, and response. The next chapter will examine controversies, accountability failures, and the limits of influence, exploring how scandals, mismanagement, and ethical lapses disrupt both financial flows and cultural trust. We will also explore lessons from ministries that recovered influence after public scrutiny, highlighting strategies for maintaining credibility and ethical power in an increasingly connected world. Every empire encounters scrutiny. In the world of modern churches, no matter the size, no matter the wealth, controversies arise and public criticism follows. While some ministries navigate these challenges with transparency and integrity, others face scandals that shake followers, attract media attention, and challenge the ethical foundations of influence. Controversy in the church economy often begins with money. Donations are intended to support spiritual and charitable work, yet the perception or reality of mismanagement can trigger public outrage. High-profile cases often involve leadership salaries, extravagant spending, or unclear accounting practices. When followers or journalists uncover discrepancies, trust erodes quickly. One common source of controversy is leadership compensation. In some megachurches, executive pastors or senior leaders receive salaries that rival CEOs of major corporations. While ministries argue that such compensation is necessary to retain talented leaders capable of managing multi-million-dollar operations, critics perceive these figures as excessive, sometimes hypocritical, and at odds with spiritual ideals of humility. These criticisms often gain traction when combined with lavish lifestyles. Luxury homes, private jets, high-end cars, and designer clothing can become the focus of media scrutiny. Even when such expenditures are legally permissible and operationally justified, public perception can be devastating. Followers may feel betrayed, donors withdraw support, and critics amplify the narrative of excess. Another source of public criticism is financial transparency. Ministries that fail to provide clear reporting on donations, expenditures, and restricted versus unrestricted funds frequently face suspicion. In the absence of accessible information, Assumptions fill the gap, often negatively. Transparency is not just a legal requirement, it is a moral imperative for maintaining trust. Controversies also arise around the allocation of donations. Some ministries redirect restricted funds, originally given for specific charitable purposes, toward operational or expansion projects. Even if legally permitted, such reallocations can spark outrage among donors, particularly when communicated poorly or discovered through investigative reporting. Case Study 1. Luxury Spending Scandal. In one well-documented example, a megachurch leader faced national attention after reports emerged that millions of dollars in donations had been used for personal luxury items, including a private jet and multiple high-end homes. Followers expressed shock, media coverage was widespread, and critics painted the leader as emblematic of greed within the church. Despite the leader's defense, citing operational needs, travel for global outreach, and compensation justified by multi-million-dollar revenue streams, trust declined sharply. Case Study 2. Misuse of charitable funds. Another ministry faced criticism when restricted donations earmarked for disaster relief were partially redirected to cover salaries and media production costs. While operationally justified by leadership, the lack of clear communication caused public outcry. Donor confidence was shaken, and the ministry had to implement a rigorous new transparency policy to regain credibility. Beyond financial issues, controversies also involve doctrinal claims and messaging. Ministries that make promises of miraculous healing, financial prosperity, or divine favor are particularly vulnerable. When promised outcomes fail to materialize, followers question both the leadership and the institution. Critics often seize upon these unfulfilled claims to challenge the legitimacy of the ministry, sometimes labeling it exploitative or deceptive. Media scrutiny magnifies these controversies. Investigative journalism, social media, and online forums allow information and misinformation to spread rapidly. A single negative story can be amplified globally within hours. Ministries that previously operated under limited scrutiny now face a relentless, real-time audience. How leaders respond is often decisive in determining whether influence is sustained or lost. Legal controversies further complicate public perception. Some ministries face lawsuits for alleged mismanagement, fraud, or misuse of donations. Even when legal outcomes favor the ministry, the process itself invites criticism, fuels suspicion, and draws media attention. The mere existence of litigation can reduce donations, impact attendance, and challenge the ethical standing of leadership. Case studies illustrate the interplay between scandal and recovery. Example 1. The recovery after financial controversy. A large ministry faced a public scandal over undisclosed luxury expenses. Donations dropped, followers questioned leadership, and media coverage was intense. The ministry responded by publishing detailed financial reports, implementing independent audits, restructuring leadership compensation, and launching a campaign highlighting charitable projects. Over time, trust was gradually restored, and donations returned to pre-scandal levels. The lesson: transparency and proactive communication can mitigate the damage of controversy. Example 2. Unresolved doctrinal dispute. A ministry promoted the promise of miraculous financial blessings, which failed to materialize for many followers. Complaints surfaced online, leading to widespread criticism. Unlike financial scandals, doctrinal controversies are harder to resolve. Followers' perception depends on personal faith, belief in leadership, and the narrative presented. Some left, while others remained loyal, highlighting the complex interplay of trust, influence, and expectation. Controversies often intersect with political and social engagement. Ministries that take positions on social or political issues risk alienating portions of their audience. Wealth amplifies visibility, and influence magnifies impact, both positive and negative. Even carefully considered advocacy can spark criticism when public perception interprets actions as self-serving or morally inconsistent. Public criticism also comes from within. Followers sometimes challenge leadership decisions, particularly when transparency is limited or communication is unclear. Boards and advisory councils may intervene, creating internal tension. The ability to address internal dissent effectively can determine whether influence is sustained or eroded. The digital age has intensified scrutiny. Social media platforms allow followers, critics, and journalists to document, analyze, and challenge ministries in real time. Online campaigns, viral videos, and expose magnify controversies that might previously have been localized. Ministries must now navigate an environment in which information, accurate or not, spreads faster than ever. Ethical and reputational risks are constant. Even well-intentioned decisions can generate criticism if perceived as inconsistent with spiritual values. Leaders must balance operational needs, financial sustainability, and public trust with ethical stewardship. Mistakes are inevitable. The challenge lies in response, communication, and correction. Crisis management strategies are therefore essential. Successful ministries employ immediate acknowledgement of issues, transparent communication with followers, independent audits or investigations, public reporting on corrective measures, engagement with media to clarify narratives. These strategies mitigate reputational damage, restore trust, and, in some cases, strengthen influence. Ministries that fail to respond risk long-term decline in both credibility and financial stability. Scandals also offer lessons in accountability. Ministries that implement clear policies for financial oversight, leadership compensation, donor reporting, and ethical decision-making are better equipped to survive scrutiny. Public criticism, while damaging, can catalyze improvements that enhance long-term sustainability. Consider the role of followers in controversy. Critics within the congregation often serve as both a warning and a corrective force. Active engagement, questioning decisions, requesting reports, demanding accountability can prevent escalation into larger public scandals. Ministries that foster an environment of transparency, dialogue, and ethical responsiveness benefit from early detection of potential problems. Conversely, ministries that discourage scrutiny or suppress internal dissent often face more severe consequences. Lack of internal accountability magnifies errors, which inevitably surface in public forums, creating crises that are harder to manage. Internationally, controversies take on additional dimensions. Ministries with global reach encounter diverse legal frameworks, cultural expectations, and societal norms. Actions deemed acceptable in one region may provoke criticism in another. Navigating these differences requires cultural awareness, legal expertise, and ethical sensitivity. Wealth magnifies visibility. Missteps are noticed worldwide. In summary, controversies in the church economy arise from leadership compensation and lifestyle choices, financial transparency and allocation of funds, doctrinal promises and messaging, legal disputes and compliance issues, political and social engagement, internal dissent, and follower criticism, media scrutiny, social media amplification, and public perception. Criticism, however uncomfortable, is part of maintaining influence ethically. Ministries that embrace accountability, transparent reporting, and ethical leadership often convert controversy into opportunities for growth, stronger trust, and improved governance. Those that resist scrutiny risk loss of influence, financial instability, and long-term reputational damage. As this chapter closes, one lesson is clear. The intersection of wealth, influence, and public criticism is unavoidable in the modern church economy. Ministries must navigate scrutiny with strategy, integrity, and humility. Followers, media, and the broader public are active participants in shaping perception, and their responses determine whether influence is sustained or diminished. The next chapter will explore reform, accountability mechanisms, and the future of transparency, examining how ministries can balance power, wealth, and ethical responsibility in an increasingly connected and scrutinized world. The modern church economy is no longer confined to physical campuses or local communities. Technology has transformed how ministries operate, how followers engage, and how revenue is generated. From live-streamed sermons to online donation platforms, the digital era has reshaped influence, transparency, and monetization in ways unimaginable just a few decades ago. The first shift came with television and broadcast media. Megachurches and ministries invested heavily in airtime, production studios, and satellite networks to reach global audiences. What began as televised sermons eventually expanded into 24-hour programming, talk shows, and even documentaries. These broadcasts were not just spiritual tools, they were revenue engines, supported by donations, sponsorships, and media partnerships. The next transformation arrived with the Internet. Websites, social media, podcasts, and streaming platforms allowed ministries to engage audiences in real time. Followers could watch services live, participate in online campaigns, and contribute donations with a single click. Ministries could now measure engagement, track donations, and analyze demographics with unprecedented precision. Monetization in the digital era operates on multiple levels. Online giving, ministries have integrated platforms for one-time or recurring donations. Many provide progress updates for campaigns, linking every dollar to a tangible project, whether building a school, funding a mission trip, or producing a video sermon. Merchandise and media sales, books, music, apparel, and digital content generate revenue while simultaneously spreading the ministry's brand and message. Paid events and conferences, virtual events, online workshops, and subscription-based content allow ministries to monetize participation while reaching global audiences. Crowdfunding-style campaigns, followers are encouraged to fund specific initiatives, often with real-time updates on impact. Transparency and immediacy boost engagement and donations. Wealth in the digital era is highly visible. Digital footprints provide followers, critics, and media outlets with detailed insights into revenue streams, content production, and resource allocation. Ministries can leverage this visibility to build trust, but the same transparency increases scrutiny. Missteps or perceived mismanagement are quickly amplified across social media and news platforms. Consider case studies that illustrate the digital shift. Case Study 1. Online First Ministry. A global ministry embraced streaming early, producing high-quality video sermons and interactive online events. Donations flowed primarily through online channels, with micro-donations from thousands of small contributors generating millions annually. The ministry also monetized digital media sales, ebooks, courses, and music, further diversifying income. Real-time analytics guided campaigns, optimized engagement, and shaped fundraising strategy. Case Study 2. Multimedia Megachurch. A traditional megachurch with multiple campuses expanded into digital platforms. Sermons were streamed, podcasts launched, and a social media team maintained constant engagement. Donations could be tracked per campaign, per service, and even per follower segment. While this increased revenue streams, it also required investment in technology, staff, and content production to maintain quality and credibility. Digital monetization is more than convenience, it is strategic. Ministries no longer rely solely on in-person offerings or television broadcasts. Online platforms allow them to reach millions worldwide, engage younger demographics, and create recurring revenue models. For many ministries, digital engagement now exceeds the influence of any single physical campus. Technology also enhances transparency and accountability. Platforms allow donors to see exactly how funds are applied. Crowdfunding-style campaigns display progress bars, updates, and reports of completed initiatives. Followers can track the impact of every donation, creating a stronger sense of trust and connection. Yet digital monetization comes with ethical and reputational challenges. Ministries must carefully balance content monetization with spiritual integrity. Followers may question premium access, subscription-based content, or merchandise sales. Luxury expenditures showcased online can provoke backlash. Every digital interaction has potential for scrutiny. Case Study 3. The Ethics of Digital Monetization. One ministry offered exclusive online workshops and paid digital content while live streaming free sermons. Followers raised concerns about perceived commercialization of faith. The ministry responded by clarifying that revenues supported content production, charitable projects, and global outreach. Transparent communication mitigated criticism, illustrating the importance of framing digital monetization ethically. Social media has revolutionized influence and fundraising. Platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok allow ministries to reach audiences in real time, share impact stories, and create viral campaigns. Likes, shares, and comments act as social proof, enhancing perceived credibility. Ministries with large followings can generate donations, event attendance, and merchandise sales directly through these channels. The viral nature of social media also introduces risk. Controversial statements, operational mistakes, or luxury expenditures can spread rapidly. In the digital era, every post, video, and comment is a potential lens for public judgment. Ministries must actively manage reputation while leveraging platforms for growth. Digital tools also enable data-driven strategy. Ministries can track donor behavior, engagement metrics, campaign effectiveness, and follower demographics. This information guides content creation, fundraising, and outreach, turning influence into measurable, scalable outcomes. Wealth, influence, and digital insight combine to create a highly efficient ecosystem. Global operations are easier to manage digitally. Ministries can coordinate international donations, streaming services, and multilingual content from a central hub. Real-time tracking ensures compliance, accountability, and effectiveness, while minimizing administrative overhead. Digital systems also allow ministries to respond quickly to crises, reallocating resources or communicating updates instantly across continents. Digital monetization also shapes cultural impact. Ministries use social media and online content to influence lifestyle, ethics, and behavior. Short clips, viral sermons, and shareable content extend spiritual guidance beyond physical walls. Followers engage, debate, and propagate messages, creating cultural momentum that amplifies both financial support and influence. Consider the modern crowdfunding model. Ministries launch campaigns for specific initiatives, building projects, mission trips, disaster relief with transparent goals and real-time updates. Micro-donations from thousands of supporters accumulate into multi-million-dollar results. Digital visibility fosters trust, encourages participation, and strengthens influence. Yet, monetization must align with ethics and narrative. Ministries that emphasize revenue over mission risk alienating followers. Excessive commercialization, luxury items, subscription-based access to sermons, or aggressive fundraising can undermine credibility. The key is balance. Technology enables efficiency and reach, but ethical stewardship maintains trust. Case Study 4. Pandemic-era digital shift. During global lockdowns, ministries shifted almost entirely online. Virtual services, online donations, and digital campaigns replaced in-person gatherings. Ministries that had previously invested in streaming technology thrived, maintaining influence and revenue. Those unprepared for digital transformation faced declines in engagement and donations. The era highlighted how monetization, technology, and influence are intertwined in the modern church economy. The digital era also introduces new forms of transparency enforcement. Independent watchdog groups, donor reviews, and public forums can assess ministries' digital operations. Platforms may highlight top contributors, campaign success, or operational transparency. Public visibility acts as both a motivator for ethical management and a source of scrutiny. In conclusion, the digital era has fundamentally reshaped the church economy. Monetization is now multifaceted: online giving, merchandise, paid content, crowdfunding, digital events, and global campaigns. Wealth enables influence, but influence depends on transparency, narrative, and ethical communication. The digital age amplifies both opportunity and risk. Ministries that adapt strategically to digital tools, engage ethically with followers, and maintain transparency are positioned to thrive in the global landscape. Those that fail to balance monetization with credibility risk reputational damage and financial decline. The lessons are clear. Technology is a powerful amplifier, but trust is the currency that sustains influence. As we transition into the final chapters, we will examine the future of the church economy, considering how digital transformation, transparency, and ethical governance intersect to shape influence, wealth, and public perception in an increasingly connected world. As we reach the final minutes of this journey, one thing becomes clear. The world of modern megachurches is complex, powerful, and, at times, controversial. Wealth, influence, and expansive reach coexist with ethical challenges, public scrutiny, and the constant demand for transparency. These are not abstract ideas. They are realities that shape millions of lives, both inside and outside the church walls. Throughout this documentary, we have explored the origins of the modern church economy, the scale of wealth amassed by ministries, and the intricate flows of money that sustain operations. We've examined influence, the subtle and overt ways leaders shape culture, behavior, and faith, and the critical role public perception plays in reinforcing or undermining that influence. Controversies and public criticism are not anomalies. They are almost inevitable. Leadership decisions, lavish lifestyles, financial mismanagement, or unfulfilled promises invite scrutiny, sometimes from followers, often from the broader public and media. But the way ministries respond defines their long-term credibility. Transparency, ethical governance, and proactive accountability are not just moral obligations, they are survival tools in an era of global visibility. The digital era has transformed everything. No longer confined to a physical campus, sermons, messages, and fundraising campaigns now reach millions online. Donations are instantaneous, impact is trackable, and influence spreads faster than ever before. Technology amplifies opportunity, but it also magnifies mistakes. One misstep can go viral in minutes, and trust can erode just as quickly as it was built. Followers are more informed, socially aware, and digitally connected than any generation before. They demand clarity, integrity, and tangible results from the ministries they support. Ministries that embrace these expectations through transparent reporting, accountable leadership, and ethical monetization are poised not only to survive, but to thrive. Those that resist change risk decline, skepticism, and eventual irrelevance. But this story is not solely about criticism or caution. It is also about potential, about what responsible leadership can achieve when wealth, influence, and technology are wielded ethically. Ministries have the power to do extraordinary good, building schools, funding healthcare initiatives, supporting global humanitarian work, and shaping culture for positive social change. When influence is coupled with integrity, impact is magnified exponentially. The lessons of the modern church economy are clear. Transparency is non-negotiable. Followers, donors, and the public expect clarity about how funds are used. Digital tools make this possible, but they also make secrecy more dangerous. Open reporting builds trust. Hidden flows invite suspicion. Ethical governance sustains influence. Dividing operational control from spiritual leadership, creating independent oversight, and implementing formal codes of conduct are essential for credibility. Trust cannot be assumed, it must be maintained. Influence is earned, not purchased. Wealth amplifies voice, but followers respond to authenticity, consistency, and demonstrated impact. Ministries that combine vision with accountability inspire devotion that last beyond financial metrics. Technology is a double-edged sword. Online platforms allow global reach, real-time engagement, and innovative fundraising, but they also increase scrutiny and magnify mistakes. Digital literacy and strategic communication are no longer optional for ministries that wish to maintain relevance. In reflecting on controversies, It is important to recognize that criticism is not inherently destructive. When managed constructively, it can be a catalyst for reform. Ministries that respond to public scrutiny with openness, correction, and renewed focus on mission often emerge stronger, with greater credibility and follower loyalty. Scandals, while painful, can become turning points that inspire better governance and ethical stewardship. Ultimately, the future of the church economy will be defined not just by wealth, size, or global reach, but by the ability to balance power with responsibility, influence with integrity, and visibility with accountability. Ministries that embrace this balance are capable of shaping culture, impacting communities, and leaving enduring legacies. Those that ignore it risk losing the very trust that sustains them. As viewers, we are left with questions as much as answers. How should followers discern ethical leadership from opportunism? How can transparency be standardized across ministries of all sizes? What role does public scrutiny play in maintaining accountability without eroding faith? And perhaps most importantly, how can wealth and influence be channeled to serve, rather than exploit, the communities these ministries claim to uplift? The world of megachurches, televangelists, and the prosperity gospel is a landscape of contrasts: faith and finance, devotion and doubt, influence and accountability. But within these contrasts lies potential. By learning from past mistakes, embracing digital transparency, and committing to ethical governance, ministries can harness their power for meaningful, positive change. In closing, the story of the modern church economy is not simply a story of wealth, scandal, or controversy. It is a story of responsibility, opportunity, and the profound impact that ethical, transparent leadership can have on millions of lives. Influence, after all, is fleeting, but trust, once earned, endures. And so, as we step away from this exploration, the final thought remains: wealth without integrity is fragile, influence without transparency is temporary, and power without accountability is perilous. But ministries that embrace ethical stewardship, transparency, and authentic leadership have the capacity to leave a legacy that transcends money, fame, or controversy, a legacy rooted in trust, service, and enduring impact.